The other day, I got an email from someone who had been watching my videos, and they said, you really messed up in your Roth conversion video. I'm like, okay, because you didn't talk about the widower's penalty. Well, leaving aside the tone of the email, or actually that it's referred to typically as the widow's penalty, they are correct. I never talked about one of the key components that makes Roth conversions even more valuable, the widow's or the widower's penalty. So in today's video, I'm going to explain the widow's penalty and put some real numbers around the impact that it could have on your budget. But first, my name is Kevin Lum. I'm a certified financial planner, and this channel is dedicated to helping 1 million people retire without worry. So what is the widow's penalty? Before I explain the widow's penalty, I want to talk for a moment about tax brackets. I know this is going to be an exciting video. I can already see the retention rate skyrocketing. He's talking about tax brackets. Now, I know this is going to be a refresher for most of you, but bear with me. Typically, when you file your taxes, and it's a little more complicated, but I just want to keep it simple, but you file either as a single filer or as a married filing jointly. And when you file as married filing jointly, you get two things. First, you get a higher standard deduction. So in 2024, that standard deduction is $29,200. If you file as a single filer, that deduction is $14,200. That means if you earned $59,200, you would only pay tax on $30,000. So then we're going to come down to the tax brackets, and we're going to say, okay, on that, you've earned $30,000 over and above the standard deduction. On the first $23,200, you're going to pay 10%. That's your marginal tax rate on that first $23,000 of earnings. But remember, you earned an additional $30,000 over the standard deduction. So then we're going to come down to the next tax bracket, and your marginal tax bracket on that additional nearly $7,600 is going to be 12%. If you were to earn over that, if you were to earn significantly over that, you might then go into the next tax bracket. The effective tax rate is then when you blend it all together and say, what did I actually pay? What percentage of my income did I actually pay in taxes? Okay, does that make sense? I know for most of you, you're like, I've known this for years. Why are you wasting my time? So what is the widow's penalty or the widower's penalty? The widow's penalty refers to the financial disadvantages that a spouse faces after their partner passes. It manifests itself in multiple ways to almost everyone. First, you'll have a drop in stable income because even though the surviving spouse can claim the higher Social Security benefits, now you just have one benefit, not two, so there's often less household income. And second, if you don't remarry, now you'll be filing as a single filer, and so your effective tax rate is going to be significantly higher because now you're going to have a lower standard deduction, and also there's going to be less room before you move up into the next marginal tax bracket. And here's the kicker. If you have money in a qualified tax-deferred account, right, so a traditional IRA or 401k, your RMDs are based on the account values and age, not in how many people are in the household. So when you pass, those qualified accounts typically will pass to your spouse, and they're going to be responsible for making those RMD payments. So let's look at an example. We have our old friends, Phil and Claire Dunphy, and they've decided against my advice. They watched my videos. They decided not to do a Roth conversion. They retired at age 62. They have a monthly budget of $8,000 in today's dollars, and they have $500,000 in their taxable account, $1.4 million in their traditional IRA. Unfortunately, Phil passed at age 80. So this time, instead of jumping over to Right Capital, I'm actually going to start with Holistiplan, which is tax software where we plan on a more granular basis for clients. So we're going to look, and it gets a bit complicated because there's a short window where you can still file jointly, even if your partner passes, but we're not going to get into those details. We're just going to assume in 2024, you filed as married filing jointly. In 2025, you had to file as a single filer. And I want to show you what impact that has on your tax bill and on your effective tax rate. So let's switch over to the other screen and I'll walk you. So here we are in Holistiplan. So typically I use Right Capital to do macro planning, what happens in 30 years. And then I use Holistiplan to do granular planning, what happens in 2024 compared to 2025. So in our scenario, it's not perfect, but we assume that it's the current tax law because we just don't know what's going to happen when the current tax law sunsets in 2026. So we have Phil and Claire. They took an RMD or an IRA distribution of $149,000. Their gross Social Security is $66,000. So Phil's benefit is $3,500 a month. Claire's benefit is $2,000 a month. So for a total of $66,000. if you've watched any of my videos on provisional income or how Social Security is taxed, of that benefit, $56,000 is going to be subject to tax. So we scroll down here, their total taxable income, or the total income rather, is $205,000. But then they get the $32,000 standard deduction. Why is it higher than that $29,000? Because if you're age 65 or older, you get a higher standard deduction. So we come down here, $172,000, $800 of their income is subject to tax. So now we can see that the total tax bill will be $28,122. The marginal tax bracket, the amount that they're charged in each additional dollar they're earned, is 22%. The effective tax rate, which is the blended tax rate, is 16.3%. So they owe $28,000 in federal tax. I want to cover this real quick. Just remember this. Their modified adjusted gross income for the purpose of Medicare premiums, so IRMAA, is $205,000. So the total federal tax is $28,000. The total state tax, remember they live in California, is $5,400. So now let's scroll all the way back up to the top. Unfortunately, Phil has passed. It's 2025. Claire is now filing as a single filer. So she still has to take a required minimum distribution. Now she's a bit older. The account has grown a bit. So the required minimum distribution is $159,000. The Social Security, as you remember, when she had the lower benefit of $2,000 a month, when Phil passes, now she gets the survivor benefit. So she's going to make $42,000. Of that, $35,700 is going to be subject to Social Security tax. So now Claire's total income is $194,700. So less income coming in. Go down here, but she has a lower standard deduction. Remember, $16,850. When they're married, they had a $32,300 standard deduction. So her total taxable income is $177,850. So we come down here, and then the total tax is $35,600. So Claire's tax bill jumps by almost $7,500. So she's now gone from the 22% marginal tax bracket, 24% marginal tax bracket, and her effective or her blended tax rate is 20%. So we keep coming down. But now remember this, her modified adjusted gross income for the purposes of IRMAA is $194,700. So 205 before, 194 now. And then we can come down here and see that her California tax is going to go from $5,400 up to $10,400. So Claire's total tax bill jumps by around $12,500. So now I want to look at what would have happened if Phil and Claire had listened to my advice and done a Roth conversion. So here we are. She still has the same Social Security income of $42,000, but notice that there are no RMDs. So the amount of her Social Security benefit that's taxed is $0. So she earns $42,000 a year, but zero taxable income. So here we have the standard deduction, $16,850. It's actually not useful in this situation because she doesn't have any income coming in. You could make an argument we should have maybe left a little bit in the IRA because we kind of wasted the standard deduction, but we're going to leave that aside for now. And as you see, her total tax bill, instead of it being $35,000 for federal and $10,000 for state, is $0. So she earned $42,000 in income, but paid $0 in taxes. And then we come down here for the purposes of her modified adjusted gross income for IRMAA is $0. So this begins to give you a glimpse into the widow's penalty. So Claire has $2,000 or less in income coming in, and she also has an additional $1,000 a month in taxes that she owes. So between the lost income and the increase in taxes, there's about a $36,000 hole in her budget, but there's more. So now let's switch over. Remember, let's go back down here. So for the purposes of Medicare premium, before Phil passed, it was $205,000. Now it's $194,000. But let's go over here and look at their Medicare premiums. I literally just pulled this PDF from Medicare.gov. So here we have, if you are a joint filer, if you're filing jointly and you earn under $206,000 a year, remember their modified adjusted gross income when Phil was alive was $205,100. So they're just under the threshold. Their Medicare premiums are $174 a month for each of them. So take that and times it times 2. But now remember, Claire is filing as a single filer, and she earned $194,000 a year for the purposes of Medicare. And remember that the Medicare premiums or the Medicare surcharges it's a cliff. If you go over just by a little bit, it kicks you into the next bracket. So here we go. Let's look down here. So she is at $194,000, remember? So we look here. So she's crossed over this threshold. So now she's in this threshold because she's a single filer. She earned above $193,000. And so her Medicare premiums are going to jump from $174 a month to $559 a month. That is just for Medicare Part B. Now we have to come down and look at Medicare Part D. So for Medicare Part D, if you earn under $206,000, it's just included in the premium. Let it come down here. So she's over $193,000. So it's an additional $74 a month. So Claire's Medicare premium jumps from $174 a month, all in, Part B and Part D, to over $600 a month. Because remember, you got the $559 plus you've got the $74. So she goes from $174 to $600 a month. So now not only does Claire have less income, she's paying $12,000 more a year in tax, $12,500 more a year in tax. But in addition, she's paying an additional $3,000 a year, a little over $3,000 a year in Medicare premiums, more than her and Phil paid together. Together, they paid a little over $4,000. Now Claire, by herself, will be paying over $7,000 a year in Medicare premiums just for her coverage. Claire has three issues. First, she has a reduction in income by $2,000 a month. She's also paying significantly more in taxes. And then in addition, it could cause her Medicare premiums to nearly double. So even though she's no longer paying the premium for Phil, both for Part B and Part D, now she's paying almost double in her premium, so there's no cost savings. So more money is leaving her pocket. She has less money coming in, and she could potentially be paying more. And this is why it's called the widow's penalty or the widower's penalty. And it can be really severe. So the question becomes, well, how do you protect yourself against this penalty? The easiest and most straightforward way to protect yourself from the widower's penalty is to do a Roth conversion. So now I want to flip to Right Capital and just show you some further out projections on what this could end up looking like. Okay, so here we have Phil and Claire in Right Capital. Just kind of recap, they have 1.9 million, 1.4 in IRAs. They have $500,000 in their taxable account. And we're going to come here and see the power of Roth conversions. Now I have them both planning this out to age 100 in the current scenario. So we come down here and you see that a Roth conversion at the up to 22% tax bracket would end up saving Phil and Claire, along with the withdrawal sequence, would end up saving them about $1.8 million. So now let's come here and say, you know what, we don't want to have Phil have a long life expectancy. We want to plan his time horizon to 80. We're going to go ahead and leave Claire's where it is. Now we see a jump from about 1.8 to almost $2.3 million in tax-adjusted savings because it helped Claire avoid the widow's penalty. And so as you can see, doing a Roth conversion doesn't only save the couple taxes, but if one partner passes before the other, which typically happens, right? This was a very clean scenario. Phil and Claire were the exact same age, but often there's a slight age differential between partners. One is older, one is younger, one is in better health. And the reality is that the widow's penalty or the widower's penalty is going to impact most couples. And without proper planning, it can be really difficult on the surviving spouse. The two easiest ways to help protect against the widow's penalty is the higher earning spouse delay their Social Security as long as possible, preferably to age 70, to really maximize the survivor's benefit. And then second, do a Roth conversion. So if you're on the line, you're trying to decide whether you should do a Roth conversion and you're married, this might kind of give you that extra nudge that you need. Hey, thanks for watching. As you're watching this, if you're wondering, what is he talking about with the withdrawal sequence? I've got a whole video where I talk about the power of which account you pull from first, and you can watch that now.